All right, a particularly hot and popular topic right now. Are Land Rover Defenders a good investment? It's a hornet's nest. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome back as always. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Paul Masenchik here at Autology Motors. It's Casual Friday. It's a holiday. I'm in a baseball cap. I should probably be in a pinstripe suit because today we're going to talk about investments and specifically investing in Land Rover Defenders, whether it's a safe place to put your money. It's a question I get all the time. Land Rover values have been escalating, particularly over the last decade. Defenders have always led that charge. Is it still a safe place to put your money? Are they still good investments? These are obviously complicated questions, and I don't necessarily have all the answers. I don't have a crystal ball in my closet. If I did, I'd probably be filming this video in front of the Alfa Romeo Montreal I didn't buy for $4,000, or the AC Greyhound I didn't buy for $6,500, or the two Porsche 912s that I sold for $9,000 each. But I do have a long history with classic cars, and I do have a lot of history with Land Rovers, and I have seen how the market has evolved over the last decade or so. And it's a question I get just too often to pass up anymore. So, are classic Land Rovers a good investment? Are they a safe place to put your money? And particularly Defenders, will the escalation in their values continue? Will they start to plateau a little bit? What exactly is going to happen with Land Rover Defender values? To put some brackets around this conversation, let's talk about investing in cars in general because it's become a very hot thing over the last 20 years. And there's a lot of talk about classic cars as investment, classic vehicles as investment. And those conversations are usually characterized by the upside, the escalation in values, how vehicles double, triple, quadruple in value over the course of a decade. But I think it's important to remember that relative to other types of more traditional investments, classic cars have a lot of important differences. When you buy a stock, for example, you buy a stock, you hold it for however long you want to hold it, and you sell the stock. And really the only costs you have involved in that are the transaction fees on both ends. But classic cars are not like that. They're very different. If you buy a classic car as an investment, there are costs associated with holding that investment. The cost of running and driving the vehicle if you're going to run and drive it around, the cost of insurance, the cost of maintenance and repairs, the cost of storage if you're going to keep it in a warehouse somewhere. And a lot of times when people look at how an investment in a classic car did, they kind of conveniently forget these elements. But they play a huge factor in the total cost of ownership of the car and therefore the total cost of the investment. I usually counsel people not to invest in classic cars. It's a very specialized type of investment, and it's not one that works particularly well for people who don't know exactly what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that investing a little bit of your money in a classic car is a bad idea. And in fact, there's some really big upsides to it, which I think are obvious. And that is, if you buy a vehicle you really want and you enjoy every day of owning it, then it doesn't feel like a traditional investment. And when you go to sell the vehicle, if you make a little money or you break even when all is said and done, it's a good, safe place to put your money and you've enjoyed the process throughout. Because if you're looking for a lot of upside out of the investment in a classic car, then you need to follow the traditional investment advice of buy low and sell high. And what that means generally is that you'll be buying classic cars at the low end of their valuation. Because all used cars basically follow the same general guidelines for valuation. When they're new, they depreciate heavily, and they continue to depreciate as just used cars for a period of years. And after some number of years, that valuation bottoms out. They basically hit the rock bottom of their value, and then they slowly start to appreciate. Now, generally, how much they appreciate from that rock bottom valuation and how rapidly they do that is based on two things: how appealing they are to collectors and how appealing they are as classic vehicles, and how many of them there are in circulation. Their appeal as classic vehicles is based on a lot of things: how enjoyable they are to own, how expensive they are to maintain and keep, how fun they are to drive, how usable they are, how much you can use them. And of course, how many of them are in the market is based on how many were produced originally and how many survive. So let's take a look at the Land Rover Defender specifically through that lens. The classic Land Rover Defender in all its various forms was built from 1983 to 2016. And if I'm not mistaken, the production during all of those years of all the various Defenders in all their various body styles was somewhere in the vicinity of 650,000 to 700,000 vehicles. Now this is all Defenders, 90s, soft tops, hard tops, 110s, 2-doors, 5-doors, everything. But still, that's a lot of vehicles, and there is no shortage of Defenders available in the world to buy. And typically that's something that keeps prices a little lower. But the Land Rover Defender is not a typical vehicle, and it never has been. It has always held a very iconic place in the hearts and minds of enthusiasts. And in 2016, when the last classic Defender rolled off the assembly line, Land Rover lovers and enthusiasts all over the world sighed in depression, and values almost immediately started to stabilize and climb. And that trend continues to this day. People love classic Defenders, so they are very appealing as a classic vehicle. And they are extremely usable as well. They can be driven every day. They are relatively cheap and easy to maintain and service. You can enjoy them in a lot of different conditions with friends, family. These things all combine to make owning a classic Defender appealing for a lot of people, not just four-wheel drive enthusiasts. And although Defender values continue to be strong worldwide, they've always been particularly strong in the United States. In the United States, the Defender has always had a little bit of a forbidden fruit quality to it because it was never sold officially by Land Rover in the United States except for 2 years in the mid-1990s. Like a lot of Defenders, they weren't that popular when they were new, but subsequently they've become extremely valuable. These are the North American spec Defenders. And in a lot of ways, Defender values in the United States have been anchored to these North American spec Defenders and elevated because of it. A good, correct North American spec Defender can be north of $100,000 and often is. But the vast majority of the Defenders you see running around the United States have been imported through companies like mine, Autology Motors. And as a result, they've been purchased substantially more affordably. But because I operate from Europe, and I sell mostly to the United States, the vehicles I sell my customers are worth more there than they are here. And they're worth a little bit more every day. Now, is that going to continue? I think the short answer is yes, and here's why. They aren't making any more classic Defenders, which means if you want a classic Defender, the number of available models, although significant, decreases every year. And the anchor point for Defender values in the United States, which is the North American spec Defenders, is probably not going to drop anytime soon. They are rare and highly collectible vehicles, and for all the right reasons. Like all Defenders, they're wonderful, cool, interesting trucks. Now, the initial fear was that an increasing number of imported Defenders through companies like mine would sort of depress the value for Defenders in the United States. As more and more became available, prices for all of them would stabilize or maybe even backslide a little. But I see no evidence of that happening, and one of the reasons is prices for Defenders in Europe is escalating quite rapidly, which means the costs involved for me to buy a Defender and build it and ship it to the United States and sell it there go up every year. And that buoys the value of all Land Rover Defenders in the United States. And when you combine this with the fact that the vehicles are simple to own, easy to enjoy, can be used in a lot of different situations from cities to suburbs to the wilderness, and with the fact that more and more people are discovering the joys of Defender ownership every year, and I think you have a really good outlook for Defender values over the near term. They can be personalized and made uniquely yours, and they often are. And they have a combination of classic style, evocative history, and ease of ownership that's very, very difficult to match. Do they fit neatly into the traditional investment ethos of buy low and sell high? No, prices are already up a bit. So if you're looking for massive upside out of the investment you make in a Defender, well, you've probably missed the boat by 6 or 7 years. But that's true of almost all appealing classic cars that are up in value. And with no backslide in values on the horizon, I think what it means is that parking some of your money in a classic Defender is a very, very safe place to put it these days. And forgetting about massive upside and instead focusing on a safe, stable place to park some of your money is a great way to look at investing in classic cars, I think. Because the only massive upside in classic car investment typically comes from buying vehicles that are undervalued at the moment, which means nobody really wants them, and then holding them for the medium or long term. With, it must be said, no guarantee that their value is actually going to escalate. Because for every $10,000 Porsche 912 that became an $80,000 Porsche 912 over 20 years, there's a $15,000 Mustang SVO that is still a $15,000 Mustang SVO over the same period. And for that reason, if you're looking for a vehicle that can act as a safe place to put some of your money for a little bit, choosing one that has already escalated in value has a better chance of guaranteeing stability in that value than buying one that is not caught on and may very well not catch on in the future. Bottom line, again, there are no crystal balls in this business. I don't have one and nobody else has one either. But both the short and medium term values for Land Rover Defenders looks pretty rosy, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. The bottom line is if you think you'd like a classic Land Rover Defender, now is as good a time to buy one as ever. It's a vehicle you can buy now, enjoy every day, make memories with your friends and family, and when you go to sell it, almost certainly not lose money and most likely make a little bit. And when I personally look at investing in cars, it doesn't get much better than that. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much. If I can build you a Land Rover Defender, by all means, let me know. I can be reached through the website, autologymotors.com. Also, please follow us on Instagram. We are at Autology Motors. We build a lot of series trucks, Defenders, Range Rover Classics, Mercedes-Benz Geländewagens, and all sorts of other things too. And we post a lot of photos and videos of our behind-the-scenes work on Instagram. So it's a great place to follow what we're up to. As always, please like and subscribe. It does help me bring you more videos, and leave comments for me down below. Let me know what you think of Defenders as an investment or what you think your dream Defender would look like. Thanks very much. Get out and explore. Enjoy your vehicles, and we'll see you next time.